Welcome to my virtual tour of my unit plan for EDT 540, Mesopotamia in the 21st Century. In this unit, I designed a website to help my students, but I also have a link to my annotated tour or bibliography. And here you'll find access to my unit plan, all my learning materials, and all the resources I use to put things together. I want to start with my backwards design unit plan. I really focused on the standards and how my students would engage with the content. So I went through and followed the ARC model, and I really wanted to think about how I'm engaging the learners in this process. So my first activity gets their attention. It's an experiential building activity where students have to work together to construct canals. I've included a picture of it in my instructional tour. But students really are working together to build canals to really understand how the people of Mesopotamia interacted with the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to survive and create agriculture. The relevance of this unit is the modern current events tie-in, where students will be blogging current events that happen throughout the Middle East while we're studying. The confidence part is because all of the material is chunked by content and skill, and I also have the information for the rubric on each assignment to kind of be used as a reflective tool. And the satisfaction part comes from the publishing and sharing of information such as the infographics on the blogs, and really for students to fill out the rubric at the end and really know that they've met the learning targets and to have evidence to meet that. So I streamlined the learning activities to focus on three primary areas of instruction. They are geography, the history of Mesopotamia, and current events. And I found that using the backwards design model helped me really think about what is essential for students to create to meet the learning targets. Another major part of my design was creating a rubric. And I decided to go with a single point rubric and to use it holistically throughout the unit. And so my students will see this rubric at the very beginning, right when we're creating our KWL charts, where they will think about what they know, what they want to know, and then come back to what they've learned. I'm using a fairly intense rubric, but the learning targets are all outlined, and students have the opportunity to meet the targets throughout the unit. And when they feel that they've met the learning target, they provide evidence, and I'm going to be initialing it. This is something that could be done digitally, or it's going to be in their notebooks, and I'm going to kind of feel that out in the fall and see how we do it. I also like the idea that we come back to these learning targets throughout the unit because it requires students to either think about what needs work and make a plan, or to think about how they can exceed. So I've chunked the learning targets by history, research and presentation skills, and then by habits of work. And this is pretty helpful. The habits of work rubric comes from our school habits of work rubric, and I really want to also encourage good work habits. So the rubric becomes pretty essential to my unit. If you go to my website, you'll also notice that at the end of every single activity or a chunk of information, there's a rubric checkpoint where I ask students to go back to the rubric and think about how they've met the learning targets. So that's a pretty cool feature that I'm excited to use. So just to go a little bit more in depth about the three main tasks, and I'll use history of Mesopotamia as an example, I look at the formatives such as building background knowledge and asking students to add to their KWL chart, key terms, the reading assignments. I look at those as ways to get students to the big picture, the big product, and I want them to put more of their time in creating their infographic. I also have included 2 exemplars here for students to check out, as well as the embedded directions that would be posted on Google Classroom. So I'm really going in a couple of places here. Another place, just quickly to kind of point out where I'm asking students to share and publish their work, is in the current events blog. And I have an essential question for them. I have some resources. I'm going to have them generate blogs via EduBlog and class together. But just to show you what it would look like, our student blog will be hosted on EduBlog. And I have the first post. I want them to tag their work so we can reflect at the end of the year. And at the very end of the year, the last blog post is about current event issues. And so students will be able to draw on their knowledge throughout the year. The very last thing is a synopsis of my strategies. I tried to balance face-to-face learning with digital environments. I tried to balance verbal and written directions. I also created a tutorial in my website to support students throughout the year in their use of APA formatting. And at the very end of the unit, I have a Socratic seminar and a final reflection for students to really think deeply about the content and the skills that they developed during the unit. I have an example of how a Socratic seminar works. And then the final reflection is a blog post, really it's a journal, where they answer these questions that were discussed in the Socratic seminar in more depth. So check out my website, check out my blog, check out my annotated bibliography of all of my resources. I tried to annotate it a little bit more to make it user-friendly. And thank you.